and action. Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody. This is Chris Brown, your superintendent of schools. Today is Wednesday, October 21st. It's 4:30 p.m. and it's my pleasure to be able to host one of a few upcoming town halls that we've been having. As soon as this town hall appears on my other computer, I'll show you where you can input questions. You can use the chat feature on our YouTube channel if you want to ask any questions of me, or of our two special guests that we're going to have here in a few minutes. And let me just see if I can get this. I'll see if I can get this going. So by looking over here, it means I'm looking at my other computer just briefly. We'll see if we're firing up the way we should be. Hopefully we are. Yep, there we go. So now it says that we're live. Okay. And let me just go to our video here. Sorry for a little bit of the delay. I'm kind of doing both things at the same time. And I think we're in pretty good shape. All right, excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in on my other computer here. So if you're wondering where you can type in your questions, I'm going to say here, good afternoon. Oops. Feel free to type your questions here. QU would help if I spelled it correctly, being the superintendent and all. Okay. And just so you know, also, our YouTube channel is about 20 seconds behind our Zoom video. So if you ask a question, I'll hang on a little bit just to make sure that we can get you an answer. And always, if you weren't able to catch this live and you end up with a question later on, you can feel free to shoot me an email. It's cbrown@mwcsd.org, or you can always give me a call, 585-554-4848, extension 1805. So I've got a few things I just want to bring you up to speed about, and then I would like to introduce our special guest for this afternoon. And the first thing is about statistics of COVID statistics related to Marcus Whitman. If you've been really plugged into the school district and have been reading everything we've been sending out, you know that we've had 2 positive cases, knock on wood, since COVID has begun. We had a student who tested positive from our high school about a month ago now, and we had a student teacher from a local college test positive as well about 14 days ago. When we had the student who tested positive, what the Department of Health is really looking for when it comes to contact tracing, they want to know, were people not wearing masks? Were they closer than 6 feet apart? And were they talking face-to-face for longer than about 20 minutes? And so when we go through and look at all of our film and talk to witnesses and all of that, we try to study and make sure that none of that stuff had happened. And in the case of the student, we found that all of our employees and all of our students were following exactly what they were supposed to follow in terms of masking, social distancing, and washing their hands. So that was great. We didn't need to quarantine anybody else. When we had the student teacher who tested positive, one of the pieces that we found was that the local college had an outbreak of COVID. And so out of an overabundance of caution, as they would say, they decided to quarantine all of the teachers, I should say all of the staff, employees that student teacher came in contact with, which happened to be 9 over a 2-day period, and then any of the students, which turned out to be 10 over a 2-day period. I would say, had that person not been a student teacher, we probably would not have quarantined anybody. Everybody was well. Everybody remained well through quarantine. It was great to have them back. And in fact, I'll show you the little thing that we made for all of our employees who were quarantined, kind of welcoming them back a little bit. I had these towels made, quarantine with my quarantine, just as a little memento for the time that they spent out. And they put together some information and are putting together some information. So if we have people quarantined in the future, we can all learn something about, what it's like during that time. Just so you know, also, all of those employees did Zoom in every day, and the students Zoomed in every day. So nobody lost any instruction, and things moved forward. We were very fortunate. One of the questions that I get quite a bit is, what's going to happen around Thanksgiving time? And that's a great question. It's a call I made to the Department of Health actually on Monday, because, my concern as a superintendent is, when you have Thanksgiving, are you going to have families that are traveling from out of town? Are you going to have kids maybe who are coming home from college, who are still allowed to be at college campuses? And now you have everybody in one household, or you have a big Thanksgiving dinner and then people go home and then we come back to school on Monday. What's going to happen? And I got some great information from the Department of Health, and Kate Ott, who's just been incredibly helpful to us. She indicated that the Department of Health will not be closing any schools because of Thanksgiving per se, or Christmas, or February break, or anything like that where people might get together. They are purely looking at statistics and the number of COVID cases to make decisions on whether to tell us to close or not. So that's that. One thing that would impact us, obviously, is if we didn't have enough employees to open, that would cause us to have to make a decision to close. But right now, we seem to be in pretty good shape. But that's what we would have around the holidays. As of today, unless something changes, we plan to come back to school the Monday after Thanksgiving. But I think anything that I was thinking of, or anything that you might be thinking of in terms of people being together and all that, those are certainly things that the Department of Health is aware of. But they also know that as of today, again, everything is as of today, that schools have not really been identified as super spreaders of the virus, because we're able to contain things pretty well. So we'll see how things go. Athletics has been going pretty well for us. I feel for parents who haven't been able to come and see their children perform in person. We've only been able to have 2 fans at each event, and then in swim, we've had to have some events where we can't have any fans at all. But we have had live streams. So while you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can also watch some of the athletic events on the YouTube channel as well. And I feel fortunate to be able to have fans in general. I know some schools aren't allowing fans at all. We're trying to do what we can, but I also know, as a parent of 2 boys who are now adults, I had to miss a game or two, and I know that I was always thinking about what they were doing when that time came, and sometimes live stream just doesn't do it enough, right? But we're going to do the best job that we can. If you haven't had an opportunity on our YouTube channel, also, just trying to reach what's called the socio-emotional learning, or the mental health, frankly, of our employees and of our students. And I've got a reading series that actually began today. We picked, I think, 7 or 8 different books about anxiety or worrying, or being uncomfortable in the being comfortable in the uncomfortable, or vice versa. And just ways for students, I would say in grades UPK to 8, but it can go older for sure. I'm reading books to them on our Zoom channel, which you can get on our YouTube channel, just to try to maybe ease their minds a little bit, coming from a role model that it's going to be okay, and we're going to be okay. Some of you who have kids in the district maybe have heard that I've had my little tiny puppy Luna visit. She's here. I was going to have her on camera, but she's sound asleep. She's been a real help to the kids and the adults as well, as I've brought her through just a little bit. We're just trying to move forward one day at a time, just as you are at home, one day at a time. And a couple other last minute things. I did want to make a clarification. Many of you do read the things that I send out, or listen to the phone calls that I make, and I appreciate that. And I'm sorry for how many, but I'm just trying to keep you informed. When it comes to remote instruction, I wasn't clear enough, and I apologize for that. What I'm saying is, we have more and more students who were full remote, so at home 5 days a week, who now want to attend school. And that's been great. So we can have them back whenever we want to, because the state regulations are asking us, in so much as possible, to get every student back to physical school if we can. So that's great. But what I didn't say clearly enough was, we do have, if there are students that are sitting here today who are in school but want to go virtual, instead of just making the choice to go virtual, those students are going to need a medical note in order to be able to go virtual. And the reason for that, frankly, is we're down to so few students who are attending remotely that we have, our teachers have things that they have to do here in school. So for a child to go full remote is causing schedule changes, and it's causing some staffing changes and all of that. So we want to make sure that if a child today is in school but wants to go remote, that they're going to be there for a medical reason. And where I wasn't clear enough is if your child is remote today and you want them to stay remote today and for the future, then that's fine. I mean, there could come a time where the governor says that remote instruction is over, or the state education department, and I send you a phone call and say, hey, all the students need to come back. We're not there. So I just wanted to be clear about that. And the second thing is too, the only kind of bump in the road that we're having, and no pun intended, with bringing students back to school is in our transportation department. Our bus drivers and our transportation director are just doing an awesome job accommodating requests every single day and changing bus runs. And I met with the bus drivers today. If you're able to drive your child to school, especially in the morning, I would really appreciate it if you would, just for the time being. Our buses aren't super full, and I know some districts around us have buses that have 55 students on them and all that. The way the rules state, we are to have our students be socially distanced on the bus, and then they use the little phrase "in so much as possible." So for us, that's 26 on a bus, in so much as possible. We have a couple of buses that are pushing 30 or a little bit more. That's okay. Like I said, there's some schools that have 55, but I'd like to make sure that we're following what's there. It's worked for us so far in terms of not having COVID being traced back to a bus ride, and that's been great. So if you are able to drive your child to school, just for the time being, I would appreciate it if you would. And if you can't, you can't. And Mrs. Shipman, who we're going to hear from in just a couple of minutes, we kind of talked about that a little bit today. We may have to take a look at some bus runs that have traditionally been in a certain area, and maybe we have to add a few more stops to it to balance one bus out where maybe another one has more students on it than we would like. And we're going to wait a few weeks and see what happens, and we'll make the adjustments that are needed. But if you're in a position to be able to help us just for the time being, I would appreciate it. And, without further ado, I do want you to get a chance to know some of the people who are making some pretty big decisions and are responsible for a lot of things in the district. And so we have 4 guests that we're going to be talking to over the next 2 weeks. And those 4 guests are our Director of Transportation, who's Leanne Shipman, who we're going to hear from in a few moments. We have our Director of Food Service, who's Carla Woolston, who we're going to hear from after Mrs. Shipman. And then next week, we're going to hear from our Director of Facilities, Dan Blankenberg, and we're also going to hear from our Director of Technology, Brenda Lehman. These 4 individuals are just rock stars, number one. But number two, they have a lot of responsibility each and every day to make sure that we can stay up and running and be safe for everybody, for your kids and for our employees. So what I thought would be a good idea is if I had them in on a couple of these town halls to be able to answer some questions and then take some questions from you. So what we're going to try to do here, Mrs. Shipman is our first one. I'm going to actually turn myself. I'm going to put my oops, I'm going to find my mask, I think. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to find my mask and put it on because I'm getting closer than 6 feet for a moment from Mrs. Shipman. And I'm going to turn my computer this way. Mrs. Shipman's going to join me over here. Hi, Mrs. Shipman.
Hi.
So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pull away from the camera just a little bit so that Mrs. Shipman can take her mask off to be able to answer questions and all of that. So I'm going to be just off camera, but off camera enough where I'm socially distant and not going to cause a problem. So here I go. I'm moving away just a little bit, but you can still hear me. So Mrs. Shipman, you can move just a tiny bit closer. There we go. Perfect.
Is that better?
Yes. Okay. So now that we're socially distant and everything's okay now, just want to run through a few questions and not in any particular order, but I think it's important. I know you've been here a long time, but a lot of people don't know who you are. So why don't you kind of talk to us a little bit about how long you've been at Marcus Whitman, and originally, why did you choose Marcus Whitman?
I chose Marcus Whitman. I've been transportation supervisor for 6 years now. I've been here in March, it'll be 27 years. I graduated from Marcus Whitman. My kids went to Marcus Whitman, and now my grandkids go to Marcus Whitman. So I know the district, I know the people. It's a good community and it's a good school district.
Yeah, that's what since I've been here just my second year, the community is just fantastic. I always tell my mom, I can't say enough just about how great the people are, and just how understanding and kind, and also people who are willing to work together on anything at a moment's notice. And you just don't get that in every community. Yeah. You just don't. Yeah. So our next question, what does I don't think people understand what your work day is actually like. So like, what time do you get up? What happens, and what time do you finally get a chance to unplug and settle down for the night?
I usually get up 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. Take phone calls if I have phone calls. Normally that's when, if I have anybody that can't come in, that's when my phone calls come in. So my day starts pretty early, and then I get a chance to finally get here. I'm here usually 5:30, 5:45, 6 o'clock, depending on how many phone calls I get in the morning. And then I start out with, I check my voicemails to make sure any of you guys that don't need rides. Then I go into my secretary's office on the other side, in my head bus driver's office, and I check their phones, because their phones have different answering services on them too. Take those phone calls, and then I just start my day, starting out with making sure all my drivers are in. They have to come in and walk by my office so I can get a good look at them. They all have to sign in, get their keys. Then they head out on their runs, and basically they go on their runs. And then when I come back, when they're out, I work on trip sheets. I work on changing routes around. I work on food service deliveries for Carla. Get that organized and assign drivers to that. And then we go into the afternoon, and it's the same thing back over again. Phone calls, daycare forms, bus passes, when kids that are assigned to stay after. The teacher emails us, and we email back the bus they're supposed to ride, and so on and so forth. And then normally my day ends not even after I get home, because I still get phone calls when I get home too, from the community, parents, my head bus driver. Situations happen that they have to be addressed.
Yeah, so that's a pretty full day.
It is.
So I would call that getting into your battle rhythm, right? So after 20
Yes.
something years, and then 6 years of doing this,
Yes.
you're pretty, kind of like being a superintendent in some ways.
Yes.
You work a lot of hours, but it's almost like if you weren't here though, things
Yes.
would pile up. So it's
Yes.
it's good to have you doing
Yes.
that. So
I feel guilty when I'm not here.
right, yeah. Well, but you need time when you have to take time,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
One question that sparked my interest too is, we are always looking for bus drivers.
Yeah.
So if somebody gave you a phone call and said, hey, I think I want to be a bus driver, how long would it take from that phone call until the time they're a bus driver? And maybe what are some things that people would want to know about becoming a bus driver?
That's the most ironic thing. When we have a new person that comes in, when the person goes through the whole training, and then they look at me and they go, wow, Leanne, I really didn't realize what all is entailed to become a bus driver. Your age is a factor on it. You have to be fingerprinted. You have to be drug tested. You have all this training that you have to do. You have to take a 30-hour course. We do train here. We have to have certain people that are certified to train. The new law now is the road test is really hard now. You have to go under the engine. You have to know all the parts of the bus, what the parts are for, let alone how to cross a kid, how to handle a student. The road test itself is 2.5 hours long now. It's not just like you go drive a bus around and that's it. You have to learn how to parallel park this big 40-foot bus, both on the left side and the right side. You have to do the straight backing up, the turn backing up. It's just ironic how things you have to do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of training. If you go and get your permit, it takes, I'm going to say with a new road test, probably a good 2 months, 3 months even. And then if you can get in to get a road test,
Right.
that's probably another month down the road.
Because of COVID, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But I find, when I talk to bus drivers, I always ask them, like, what's the favorite part of it? And they always say the kids.
the kids.
Right. Yeah.
The kids.
It's funny. Most of us watching this can probably remember who our bus driver was.
Yes.
And that's how important our bus drivers are. Right.
If I'm out to town before COVID hit and I would run into some of my students on the bus, I had my bus run for a lot of years. And I was picking up kids of parents that I took back and forth to school. And it's a good reputation, rapport, whatever. They come up and oh, Leanne, they give you a big hug, and that always puts a smile on your face because, oh, they really do remember you, because you're the first person they see in the morning and the last person they see at night. And a lot of them get comfortable with that.
Yep.
If they've had a bad day in school, they'll come in and they'll open up to you.
Yeah.
And it's hard you want to listen to them, but you have to drive and be safe at the same time.
Right.
But it works out great.
Yeah.
And you've got to love kids in order to do it.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
It's stressful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you're driving a moving classroom,
Yes.
essentially.
Yes.
So if a kid is out of line, you can't just put them in the hallway, because the
Right.
hallway would be the road.
Yeah.
And you're driving
There's no
away.
hallway.
Right. There's no hallway. Right. So, yeah. So one more tough question before I ask you a couple of softball questions. Okay. So how about, I'm not sure that people know how a bus route is designed. So can you kind of walk us through how you design your bus routes?
Our district is unique because we're one of the largest school districts in New York State. I think we rank number 7 or 8 now. I think Penn Yan finally took over for us. We're 154 square miles, and no matter what way you look at it, from this point where we are here at the bus garage to the farthest point out of the district is 30 minutes. So there's no way you can make that shorter because of the size of the district.
Yeah, true.
And we try our best, and that's why the logistics of it. I know parents get impatient, but you've got to remember that if we have one student, if I have a parent that calls me in the morning and says, Johnny's not riding today, and Johnny's on one of the farthest points out of the district, then it takes less time. The next stop, that driver has to slow down because timing is everything. And they have to slow down because otherwise they'll be at their first stop that's not there anymore. Their second stop will be earlier. So, and it's hard. The parents just don't understand the logistics of it.
Yeah.
And I've tried to, when we used to have our orientations with the kindergartners and the pre-K, if you have one student that isn't on the bus, it makes a big difference in a 154 square mile district.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can, your run can change as much as 20 minutes.
That's why we need helicopters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That would work. So for parents too, I had said in the beginning of the school year that we have a server on the way that we're going to be able to have students check in and check off the bus. And then if they have a smartphone or a computer or a Chromebook, they'll be able to see how far away the bus is once it gets 2 miles in.
Yes.
They'll be able to get it. So that's still in the works. I want people to know that we've just been.
But today our little GPS unit things, our tablets and the brackets to hook them up into the buses came today.
That's great.
So that's a start, a good start.
So if you're watching this, give us another month or so. And if you've got a smartphone, you'll be able to see where the bus is in relation to picking up your kid. And that'll help to ease, I think, a lot of concern, especially in the winter.
Yes.
When it gets dark so soon.
Yes.
And it's dark when the kids are going to school and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
And the program will be able to print in the program. If the bus is broke down, we'll be able to print it in there, and they can see that on the phone that, so-and-so bus is disabled at the moment.
Yeah.
Everything's okay, but it's just,
Yeah.
it's broke down and they're waiting for another bus to come and pick them up.
Yeah. I just think that's technology that we have to have, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we will. So,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate that. So a couple easy ones for you, I think, right? So, how many buses do we have in the fleet?
36.
36. And
36.
How-
3 Suburbans and 2 cars.
okay. And then how many miles do we travel in a year total?
A normal year, anywhere about 800,000 miles.
Okay.
A lot. This year, of course, it'll be cut down because haven't done anything since May or since
Since
March.
March, yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's where I think the size of the district comes into play, or the geographic size, because my previous school district was, I think it was 92 square miles. I had 100 buses, and we drove about the same number of miles, but I had 5,500 kids.
Yes.
So I had to have way more buses out on the roads, but we still traveled the same amount. You have 36 buses on 154 square miles driving about the same thing.
Yes.
So that's an interesting piece. Yeah.
And yours probably was all flat land too. Ours is,
Yeah.
one side is mountains,
Right.
and one side is flat.
Yeah.
So you've got, in the wintertime, you got drifting on the flat, and then it's a whole nother world when you get up in the elevated areas.
Yeah. As I know, when I'm trying to call or not call a snow day, I'm aware of that here. Yes.
It could be foggy and snowing up there, but raining down here.
That's why I'm happy to have a truck.
Yeah.
So I think something that so we have 36 buses, so people might make the assumption that we have 36 bus drivers. That's not true, right?
No, we have close to 45 bus drivers.
Yeah, because people get sick. We have different things that we have to do and all that kind of thing. And
but that's monitors. I'm counting my monitors too. My substitutes. I have 4 mechanics. Well, 3.5 because Paul drives bus too.
Yep.
He's a part-time bus driver too.
Yeah. And speaking of mechanics, what have they said is the most common repair?
The most common repair would be our brakes.
Okay.
And then tires.
Replacing
tires because of the miles we put on.
Yeah.
And then the lights, the clearance lights.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of our buses take a beating because it's nothing against the people who do the roads. It's just that we have some roads that are just tough.
Yes.
And all that vibration and that kind of thing just gets
potholes,
in there. Yeah. So, I mean, I should know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How many miles does a bus have on it when we take it out of service and we want to trade it or sell it? Approximately like 180,000. Yeah, 180. So for all of you out there who are trying to put 200,000 or more on your Toyota Camry, our school buses have got almost that many miles on it. I actually know.
Just broke in then.
Yeah, I know somebody that put 1 million miles on a Toyota once, but we're not going to put 1 million miles on a school bus. It's not going to happen.
I've got a couple of them that have 200,000 on, but they're my spare buses that I have to have them.
Yeah, and just with the corrosion and everything that happens, you just can't keep them. Yeah. So here's kind of like a philosophical question, right? So what's one thing that you wish everyone knew about your job that might make it easier for you to do your job?
The logistics. Just be patient. Logistics is the big thing.
Yep.
Because like I said, depending on the day, depending on the weather, depending on the amount of kids we have, it all factors into it.
Yeah.
It's not just Johnny's bus is here at 8:00.
Yeah.
Well, there may be some reason why the bus isn't there at 8:00.
Yeah.
Something could happen. And I don't have the time to call every parent on that bus. I wait, they call me and the buses broke down, and usually pretty good about that. Communication is the big thing.
And I'm wondering if our new
system
should help that a lot, I think, because parents will know exactly where that bus is when it's 2 miles or less from their home.
Yes.
Right. So I think that would be huge for people.
And a lot of parents too, they think that we need to beep the horn. If we're sitting there, beep the horn. Well, New York State doesn't want us to do that because it's more of, we teach our kids when we cross.
Yep.
If we hear the horn beep, go back to where you started from. It's a safety factor. It's not, well, the driver was here, but he never laid on the horn. Well, we're not supposed to.
Yep.
If the driver does do it, the driver does it for courtesy.
Well, so that's a great point. And I think one of the things that changed 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, was the idling of buses, right? So used to be you'd go in your bus circle and every single bus would be on the entire time waiting for the kids to get on there.
Yes.
And now we can't. And then sometimes people wonder why, well, my child was cold the first few minutes of the afternoon bus run. Well, if the buses had to sit in the circle for a little while, they cannot be on.
Right.
And that's a little bit of a tough thing too.
Yes.
We've kind of gotten used to it, but
And also too, with COVID, we have to ride with our roof hatches open. That's going to make it cold in there.
Oh, I tried it. I forgot about that.
And our windows have to be ajar. So we've got, and it's been hard with the rain and stuff.
Yeah.
So the parents should kind of try and remember that when they're putting their child on the bus, because they really should have their coats with them, because the windows are cracked a little bit for ventilation because we're in such close quarters.
Yeah.
And their masks wore all the time. But still, for ventilation, that's what Department of Health has recommended us to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So before I ask Mrs. Shipman the last question, anybody who has any questions for Mrs. Shipman, feel free to type them in, and I'll make sure that they get answered. So probably, this is a question that I'm going to ask everybody, and I've been asking a lot of people this question. What's been your biggest takeaway from this pandemic?
My biggest takeaway from this pandemic is how we've all worked together to make it safe for the kids to come back to school.
Yeah.
I've been not only in logistics with the bus runs, I've been in with Carla with food service, with Dan in the buildings logistics stuff, the food delivery stuff. It's just been a real enlightening experience on how we all came together to make this work.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep saying that to people that's been my biggest takeaway too. It's the togetherness, and we're going to get through this. And there's people hurting out there, but they'll still do what they have to do to make sure that their child gets the education and things that they need. And that just is amazing. It's just a testament to parenting, number one, but it's also a testament, I think, to everybody that we've got here helping to make it happen on our end too. So, so look at no questions for you on the YouTube channel. So you got off easy.
I got off easy.
I appreciate your time, and maybe we'll have you on again at another time. Okay. And so
I can hang around a little while.
Yep. So we're going to have you move you and your whole chair, because we're going to practice good pandemic. I'm putting my mask back on too. And I'm coming back in here. So hopefully you learned something today from Mrs. Shipman that you didn't know about school transportation. And I think after we get done talking to Mrs. Woolston here, we're going to learn something else, some more stuff about food service that we didn't know before this started. So I'm going to have Mrs. Woolston kind of pull in here, and we're going to ask her some questions as well. I'll get your chair.
Because I have a precious cargo.
Oh, yeah.
Do.
So we're going to put your chair right there.
I have Miss Luna Bee.
And so Mrs. Woolston has Luna. So if your kids have seen Luna, Mrs. Woolston has her right now. She just woke up from a nap, so we'll see how she does. She's going to go down now. So I'm going to back away here and take my mask off so she can take her mask off. I'm going to socially distance myself. Okay. So how are you today, Mrs. Woolston?
I'm doing well.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So obviously, I've worked very closely with you and Leanne, actually, since I've been here with this pandemic and everything. Basically, everything runs through the two of you operationally, and Dan and Brenda, right? So which is why I've got the four of you coming on. So I'm going to ask you some same but some different questions that I asked Mrs. Shipman, okay? So the first one, how about for people who don't know who you are, how long have you been at Whitman, and why did you choose Marcus Whitman?
I have been at Marcus Whitman for 12 years. And at the time when this position came available 12 years ago, I was doing Romulus in Seneca Falls, and I'm a Penn Yan girl. So when this position opened up, I was anxious to get closer to home. Plus, Whitman had a wonderful reputation about being a great place to work, and I was really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Still excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. That's for sure. What made you choose food service as a career?
Well, I started waitressing when I was 13. So I've always been involved in food service in one point or another. Went off to college after graduating high school. And my junior year at Keuka College, my parents bought a small restaurant in Penn Yan called the Ice Cream Emporium. So I went to work for them, and we owned the restaurant for 10 years. Then I went to work at our local hospital, Soldiers and Sailors, in the food service department, and took advantage of the programs that were there, went back to college, and became a registered dietetic technician. And I went from feeding the elderly to feeding the young. And I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. It is interesting, right? I think the paths that we take sometimes on our journey, people just see us as a superintendent or as a director of transportation or as a director of food service. But when you really start to talk about how you got from A to B, we have some interesting stories sometimes, I think, and interesting journeys where I think we learn something from each thing that we do that makes us better for the job that we're in,
Definitely.
So talking about that, I think one of the most amazing things to me in food service, especially cooking for large groups of people is meal planning. I think it's one thing to plan a Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people that are coming to the house, except not this year because of COVID.
No.
I'm only kidding.
No.
But you know, how do you meal plan? And maybe you can talk to people who are watching about where we get our food from and how that goes into your meal planning and all of that.
Okay. So in February of any given year, we are given a list and an amount of money to purchase our government commodities. And I get turkeys, taco meat, cheeses, all kinds of stuff. And we purchase all this a year ahead. So in February of 2020, I was purchasing things for September. And so based upon what I've ordered, I meal plan. And then of course, we always try to have the things available for the students, which are their favorites. And then we also have to take into consideration our students with special dietary needs, whether they're vegans or lactose intolerant or gluten-free. So we try to check all the boxes and try to make everybody happy with all of our choices, and plus keep it affordable.
Yeah.
We have to be cost conscious.
Yeah. So what, I mean, maybe this is an unfair question, but what does a regular lunch, like what's the meal cost on a regular lunch? So for example, last night was I'm always looking for bargains. So last night on my way home from work was buy one, get one free subs at Subway.
Mhm.
I don't normally go there, but it was buy one, get one, right? So I decided to I went and got 2 subs. I got 2 subs for, I think it was $9 or $10, right?
Mhm.
What, if you were coming, if you had the cafeteria open or the kitchen open every night and people were coming and ordering off of a menu,
Mhm.
and what would they pay per meal, do you think? Like what would be a typical cost for something if my subs were $9?
Well, we try to run your price point. You want to run a 30% food cost.
Okay.
And that doesn't include your labor. That's just your food cost. So for example, when I'm meal planning, if I've got a government commodity item, like say our taco meat,
Mhm.
okay. So when you're planning that meal, you want to stay right around $1.75 with all your components. So you take some government commodity stuff, you're buying some stuff from Cisco, you're getting some fresh fruits and vegetables. So you pick and choose when you're creating a menu to stay within that price point. So whether it's government stuff or stuff we're purchasing or whatever, you just try to pick and choose to make it all come together so you're staying within your price area.
Yeah, it's funny. My favorite memory of my time at Hammondsport, you know, I've been superintendent at Hammondsport, superintendent at West Genesee, and now superintendent here at Marcus Whitman, which I love, was Mrs. Bartlett, and she's since passed away. But she was an old Italian woman, and whenever it was time for lasagna, I was teaching math at the time, and I would come down, and she would have a full thing of my own plate. Container of lasagna that would be in the oven, just there heating for me.
Mhm.
And we can't do that anymore, can we?
No.
Because of the new kind of food service requirements.
Right.
Yeah. What could you tell people about what's changed maybe since the time you've been doing this?
Some of the things that have changed dramatically are the amount of whole grains that we have to provide. Half of our grains during any given week have to be whole grain. We also have to be offering, when we offer our vegetables, they can't be all green beans all week. They want everything to be colorful. So we can have some orange, some green, and we have to have more beans, more legumes onto the menu. So they really want things to be far more balanced. We have fresh fruit, we have canned fruit, we have frozen fruit. Everything has to balance itself out. They have to have a bigger variety of choices. I mean, we can have any student would love a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and an apple every single day of the week. And that's something that the government really doesn't want to see. They want to see these kids trying new things and being exposed to more options than just peanut butter and jelly and an apple.
Yeah. Well, I think what I've seen in my time, 21 years being a superintendent, I have seen students become more adventurous in their eating over the
Definitely.
years, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen less food waste
Mhm.
over the time as well. And I've
Mhm.
just seen when we've offered some menu options that, they might not see at home or
Mhm.
they might not see someplace else, especially vegetables, different
Mhm.
vegetables that we try.
Yes.
I've seen students try them and get to be a little bit more adventurous. I think
Definitely.
the biggest piece for me, like shrimp poppers, for example.
Mhm.
15 years ago, I wouldn't have thought of a fourth grader eating shrimp
Mhm.
at all.
Yeah.
But now shrimp poppers are one of the
They
most
love it.
popular things that we have.
Mhm. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, so speaking of popular lunches, what is the most popular lunch here at Whitman?
Tacos.
Tacos?
Tacos and loaded nachos are definitely the
Yeah.
number one. You would think it would be pizza, but it's not.
It's not,
the
yeah.
tacos. And I noticed too with our high school kids especially, they're far more food savvy.
Yep.
This generation is than the kids were 10, 15 years ago. I mean, they're exposed to so much more,
Yeah.
whether it be with the food channel or just Wegmans being right around the corner and all the wonderful options that they have. But yeah, our kids are much more food savvy.
Yeah, and I like it. I think
Oh,
I
I
think
do
I think it's
too.
great.
I do too.
Our just like our bus drivers and our mechanics, we have a great food service team that I also got to work closely with,
Yes, you did.
since COVID has begun here. How many people are on the team?
14.
14. Yeah.
Yep. 14.
And how many of them have made food service kind of like their career?
A good percentage of them. Currently, our head cooks, Sylvia Chase, she's been with the district since 1989.
Okay.
So 31 years.
That's the year I graduated from high school, but we're not going to tell her that.
No,
No.
we won't tell her that. Jeannie Savage has also been here over 30 years. So the majority of the staff I have right now are lifers.
Yeah, so listen, whenever I hear Mrs. Savage's name and I'm in the community, someone is related to Mrs. Savage.
Yeah.
You cannot get away from somebody being related to Mrs. Savage. I
This is
have
true.
noticed that.
And she knows everybody.
She definitely does. Yes, she does. Yeah, I think it's great. It's interesting in my experience. I think food service and bus driving for that matter, I think they're two professions that were designed a long time ago to have high turnover.
Mhm.
Because of the way they're paid and all of that. But I really feel like many food service workers make a career out of that, just as many bus drivers do.
Yeah.
A lot of bus drivers, it's their second or third career sometimes,
Mhm.
but many of them stay for a long, long, long time. And
A lot of them that I have are live in the district.
yeah, which is great,
Yeah.
which is,
They went to school here.
yeah, which is awesome
Yeah,
too.
same thing with most of my
Mhm.
staff. They've either graduated here, their
And
children
we-
have
and
gone
we
here.
share staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do share
Yeah.
stuff. Yes.
Couple last questions here, and one of them I think is really important, especially during COVID and with people struggling right now.
Mhm.
Can you explain in the simplest terms possible how someone qualifies for free or reduced lunch, and also how it's kept confidential,
Mhm.
and also how, if someone does qualify, how that helps everybody else if they do sign up for free reduced lunch?
Sure. There's a few different ways you qualify for free or reduced lunch. There's the paper application that comes into our district calendar that you can fill out, and that's based upon income. There's guidelines that I'm given each year, and they change for how many people are in your household to how much your gross income is. So you fill that out, it comes to me, I process it. The other way is if your family receives SNAP or Medicaid, you're directly certified through Albany, and I download a file monthly, and that goes into our computer system. Everything is kept confidential. When your students come through the lunch line and they punch in their number, or now that they use the scanner with their ID cards,
Right.
it comes up onto the computer screen and nobody knows. The cashier doesn't even know who's free and reduced. And certainly the students behind them don't know either. It's very, very confidential, just for privacy reasons.
Yep.
and all of that. And the advantage for filling out the applications and being on a direct certification file is one of the first questions when anybody within the district is trying to do a grant, I get the phone call. What's our percentage of free and reduced? Because anything for that, we have to be over 50% to qualify for anything. So the more we have on free and reduced, the better for the district.
Yeah, and that's a great point. What is our current district-wide free and reduced lunch percent.
53%.
So it's 53%. And so I think for people who are watching who maybe have friends in Penn Yan or other areas where that free and reduced lunch percentage is higher, I think there's some confusion out there. There are EBT cards that some people qualify for, and that really does depend on who is a direct application. So Albany, their name is on the list that we get from Albany, and there are some communities where there are far more people who get that than others. And so Whitman at 53% is high, but it's not as high as some of our neighbors. And that's why if you have a friend in a different school district who maybe got an EBT card and you didn't, that might be a reason, right? Or it just might be that it's delayed in getting there.
That's true too. And there's two different percentages. So when I say 53%, I'm factoring in the paper applications we have along with the direct certification file. So when we looked at just the families that qualify for the direct certification, we're at 32%. And to be able to qualify for the CEP or Community Eligibility Provision Program, we have to be at 40% to be able to even qualify for that. And Whitman isn't there yet.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think we're going to be creeping there once more families are, as we keep working through COVID, you know, and everybody's kind of struggling. We may get there. So that is the reason. It's not that we haven't done anything or the county hasn't done anything. It comes down to percentages, and right now we're just not where we have to be to have the entire school district qualify. So
but the USDA has allowed for until June 30th of 2021. All students will be receiving free breakfast and lunch.
Which I think is just absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. So last kind of question, what's been your biggest takeaway from the pandemic?
Never take a single hug for granted. I'm a hugger.
No, that's
so
true.
That's tough. But just sitting back and watching how everybody came together with Leanne and Dan and you and my little COVID crew, because I had 7 and they were my COVID crew, and we just all pulled together. Our community meals, our board members. It has just been overwhelming, the support and just what we've been able to do for this community and what the community has given back to us. We had a purpose. To be able to get out of bed every day, we had a purpose because we were helping people. So,
I think one of the things that people don't realize is when we were in the spring and summer and we did the grab and go breakfast lunch, that's one thing that got subsidized kind of by the government and kind of helped us. But those dinners that we did were completely on our own and at our own expense. And we were so happy that the community was so supportive that it cost us, I think it was $17,000 to offer the grab and go dinners to families, and we were able to get that money back in donations to break even, which was absolutely huge. Not every community does that. There's no question about that.
And we had such an outpouring from different businesses that would do any donations, whether it be food or to-go containers or just anything. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful.
So one of the things that as we conclude Mrs. Woolston's kind of interview here, I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank Mrs. Shipman, just because you're available all the time. You're thinking about what's best for kids and our community all the time, right? And so I want to let Mrs. Woolston kind of let the cat out of the bag here for the first time. One of the things that we like to do is we like to give back whenever we can. And you heard Mrs. Woolston kind of talk about government food that we get. And we also, I want to put in a big thank you to Freihofer's, to Dudley's, and to all the other places, Sloth Electric, to Food Link. Everybody, right? Tommy and Farm, everybody that's helped us. And so one of the ideas that Carla had as a give back, which I thought was just amazing, and I jumped on board immediately, and I know Mrs. Shipman will too. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. I'll let Mrs. Woolston do it, but we're going to be happy to sponsor something, Mrs. Shipman and the rest of us and I. And Mrs. Woolston, what is that?
On Thursday, November 12th, we are going to do a community Thanksgiving dinner. much like our dinners, community dinners that we did from April to June. You'll be able to pull up and we will have a nice Thanksgiving meal ready for the community. We're going to have a sign-up sheet so we know how much to cook, but Thanksgiving is going to look a little different this year for everybody and for even our students that are in school, and I really wanted to do something for the community.
Yeah, so which I think is awesome. So what we're going to do, we'll have a sign-up sheet that's going to come out here pretty soon. I talked to Mr. Sealing yesterday. Everybody knows Mr. Sealing. He's going to be the person that's going to help us with traffic. It's going to be a grab-and-go hot Thanksgiving. So if you don't remember when you went to school what that Thanksgiving lunch tasted like, it's awesome. And so the Thanksgiving dinner is going to be that exact thing, and we're looking very, very forward to doing it. So the reason why it's on the date that it is because the day before is Veterans Day. It's a Wednesday, falls right in the middle of the week. So we're going to do some cooking when the kids aren't here, do some prep, get everything ready so that on Thursday, right after school, we can start rolling things out to you in the community. So we'll give you some more information, but just like all the ideas that Leanne and Carla have, another winner, another grand slam. So it's pretty awesome.
It's not going to be a chicken dinner. It's going to be a turkey dinner.
Turkey dinner, exactly. So yeah, so thanks to Freihofer's, we've got a lot of stuffing that we have. We've got the turkey, we've got all kinds of stuff coming. So it'll be Tommyans is going to help us with the potatoes. We'll have mashed potatoes and
stuffing, and we're going to make blueberry cobbler for dessert, and turkey and gravy, all kinds of good stuff.
Yep. And if we can organize it, and I'm sure we will, we have great partners with the Rotarians and also the Lions, helping us to maybe do some deliveries to some of our senior citizens and shut-ins who won't be able to make it up here to get it. So we're looking at it being a real community event. Pretty close to the holiday. So stay tuned.
Very excited.
Pretty cool stuff, right? And so thank you, Mrs. Wilson. I appreciate it. I'm going to bring the computer back my way. And, thanks again for tuning in. And if you're tuning in tonight because you couldn't make the live show, that's fine. As long as you're getting information, I think what we learned from Leanne and Carla was tremendous stuff. It's just things that we don't think about and don't know, but they're very important things in terms of helping with the whole education of our kids and our adults for that matter. I'm going to take one more look at our screen and see if there's any questions that we have here. We did have a question earlier, which was a great one. When the pandemic is over, and let's all hope that it gets to be over sooner than later, is the Gorham time, is the Gorham bus time and school time going to remain the way it is right now? The answer to that is yes. It's been working. It's helped us to have students on buses for less time, and it's also helped us to not have as many students on buses. And it's also made it so that our Gorham students don't need to ride to the high school first when they come home and all of that. So it's been a success so far, and so we're looking to continue that. So that was a great question. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. If you have any questions after this, feel free to let us know. And next week, I'm going to provide you with another update, and we're going to hear from Brenda Lehman in technology and Dan Blankenberg in our facilities. So until then, stay safe, stay well, and take care.